Hey, this is Cadillac from the CRP, and we are talking about 239, the UFC, their big headline fight of the night, Jon Jones. Ugh! That was the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life. Amanda, talk to me about it. In case you don't know, new CRP analyst Amanda Schutte. Amanda, take it away. Tell us why this sucks so bad.
Well, I mean, like we were just talking about, Jones had over 8-inch reach advantage. He never really touched his face. He fought Santos Santos had one leg the whole fight, half a leg the last round, and he point fought him. If you took out the knee kicks, he would have lost. He would have flat out lost. And, when you have a split decision on a fight like that, and in my opinion, I thought Santos was winning. I really did. I thought about it looking back, reflecting. Jones did kick him in the knee a lot of times because I physically winced every time he did it. So he did kick him in the knee a lot of times, but really if it wasn't for those knee kicks, he would have lost the fight. And, and at the end there, putting his hands up and walking around in circles like he had completed his task. Like, you didn't complete nothing. You literally stopped the fight 3 seconds early and almost lost the split decision. Like, that's what you did. You didn't do anything to earn anything. You're not a GOAT. You're not getting a performance bonus. You don't need handed a special microphone. Like, you did nothing tonight to earn any accolades. Like, you did nothing. Not a single thing. You got a PR rep. That's all you've done this week.
Miguel, what do you say about that?
Yeah, well, for all the hype, you do expect more when Jon Jones, it was, in tone, when you listen to the gushing that the announcers did for him, how, the one that jumped out at me was like, his loss is not a loss because, and I mean, of course, he was dominating Hamlin. They're right, but it's just the tone and the delivery and the whole packaging of him in that way that you're left expecting a little more, no? And for the second time in a row, I'm left more impressed by his opponent than by him. Though he's a different breed of guy in that I think that for all the big punches and all the significant strikes that Thiago landed, I don't think that Jones was ever really hurt, and I don't think he was ever really at risk in the fight. Now, I do. If you think Santos win, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think Jones played it loose and left it to the judges, which is a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
But I think he was comfortable throughout, and I think he expressed that in the post-fight interview that the guy was tough, and he just, but I don't think he was ever hurt, and I think that's what makes it freaky because he did land some good shots and stuff like that, and he didn't even he didn't even have his head knocked back. It wasn't any of those jobs. Jones is a Iron Man type of dude right now. Nobody's rung his belt.
Well, let me ask you this. Why in the fuck didn't he take down his opponent? One takedown, please. Give us something besides a teep kick. Because, frankly, I get sick and tired of teeps. Oh, boy, he kicked him in the thigh again. Whoopee.
But can we talk about that? Can we talk about the goose egg?
Let's put Amanda Nunes up and put her where she should have been, which should have been in the main event, which Amanda had called 6 days ago. Am I right, Amanda?
I mean, yeah. Nunes should have been the main event. Just because traditionally the heavier weighted championship fight is the main event doesn't mean that's the way it should be. Like, Nunes should have had that top spot. And if tonight proves anything, just because someone has a name and you want someone to be famous, that doesn't mean they're the best billing. So, I guess I get frustrated because it's like the UFC can't decide if they're going to be devoted to like the sport and what it means to people and the actual like heart behind it, or if they're going to go the promoter route, like what are you going to do? Because half the time you're pushing Jones and people like that and you're doing the promoter route and you're not really looking at what the sport wants. And then you matchmake matches like Askren and Masvidal, and you're like, yes, that's perfect. But then it's ridiculous.
So
Just pick one, you know.
So let's do this, guys. Let's skip right to the fights that really mattered to all of us. First of all, Diego Sanchez. Who's with me? He needs to retire.
I mean, I said it a couple days ago.
Miguel?
I mean, he looked great in his last outing, right? So it just depends. You know, if he wants to keep fighting, he was fighting a relative novice last time, which explains a lot, right?
Yeah.
And this time he was fighting a guy a little more advanced, and a guy that size-wise was able to dominate him and stuff. So I mean, like I said, you can matchmake with a guy like Diego. He still has his wits about him and stuff, but I'd keep him out of your front lines at this point,
So we talked about it, and I'm pretty sure I can officially release this now that Diego is in line with BioAccelerator to have stem cell treatment. And so maybe we get 5 more years of Diego Sanchez simply from stem cell treatment. But we sure didn't see any difference in Melendez on the undercard tonight, did we?
Well,
I mean,
you want to comment on that one first?
Who do you want to go first?
Miguel, go.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Miguel.
Well, the kid he was fighting is a prospect, right? And he continues to be a prospect in a way. If you look at it, the kid, and he's very good, But the situation there is, if you look at his resume, by far and away, Gilbert Melendez was going to be the biggest name that he ever had, So,
right.
But at the same time, I don't know, I mean, not having seen Gilbert in such a long time, it made me kind of sad because, it was the kind of thing where Arnold Allen's the guy's name. I keep not saying it because I didn't want to get it wrong and call him Alan Arnold. And but Arnold Allen, he took a nice next step because this was definitely a more high profile fight. And I think a lot of where you need to bring these fighters along too is a lot of the psychological, how you come into a fight here. And I think with what Gilbert Melendez brings in terms of experience and what the gravitas you have to give a fight with a guy like that, Allen took a step up, even though probably some of the younger guys maybe have more in the tank than Gilbert has left. I remember when Gilbert was that young guy, like Arnold Allen is now, and it's not the case anymore. And it's a shame that he's going to go out, on such a long losing streak. But that's the way the fight game goes.
So again, another BioAccelerator guy is Miguel, or is Melendez, and he just got back from his stem cell treatment, and so they haven't kicked in all the way yet. It takes 3 months. We might see him come back and do something else yet, and we might see him be a different person. Let's see what plays out with that. If nothing else, he got some treatment and he got some care for it, and that's a good thing. And I'm happy for him for that. Amanda, do you think that Melendez should hang it up after this one, or do you think he's got another one in him?
I mean, I think he's just kind of getting relegated to that gatekeeper role we were talking about. It's unfortunate. Yeah. You hate to see someone that has so much potential when they come in not quite get where you expect them to go. But I think he's kind of just been relegated to that gatekeeper status. It's just, and those are the guys that they fight because they want to fight. So he's either going to get some treatment, come back, and be a good gatekeeper, or he's going to have to make a decision.
Yeah, and the other thing you have to consider about this is the UFC goes, hey, look, we know we didn't pay you enough in the early days. We've got billions behind us now, not hundreds of millions. And we feel like we can throw a little bit of money around. And you're going to be a gatekeeper, kind of the same way they thought Cerrone was going to be until they went in there and beat a couple of guys. Pettis was going to be until he beat a couple of guys. Masvidal was going to be until he beat a couple of guys. Right. Now we've got a whole different situation on our hands. And look, the one thing I want to say is that opponent-wise, with Sanchez, the matchup wasn't necessarily about skill set or about his ability to his virility so much as it was just about absolute size difference and domination, and that was the difference in size domination. So what I do want to kind of hit real quickly is, did we see the first step forward of, okay, we finally accepted that there's no way we can get around weight cutting with intravenous usage and things like that. We can no longer resaturate ourselves. So we've got to accept this and move up. And have we started to see the UFC move forward and fighters actually fight where they're supposed to be? Sort of the Chris Lytle thing, which Chris Lytle never cut more than 10 pounds for a fight ever. And, he was a champion and he did a lot of great things. He won tough and all of that. And Miguel, do you think that's a legitimate argument to have? Is that, maybe the idea that not IVing was, after all, a good idea, and that it made the sport more competitive, when a guy like me absolutely insisted that it shouldn't be, that we should just do same-day weigh-ins?
Yeah, I mean, as long as you can have day before weigh-ins, the 24 hours that you give the fighters are ostensibly, right, to for them to rehydrate properly, right? So the point to me is then you start taking some of the tools away for just proper rehydration, and then you're just in a bureaucratic hell again.
Right.
With a fighter, I think it depends at a point in time. I think what you're referring to is Luke Rockhold, because Rockhold was making his debut at 205, and it didn't go so well for him, but he was a guy who was known for a huge cut at 185, and they were talking about how big he was still at 205. I think Amanda, in the pre-fight warm-up that we had, a little talk that we did before coming on the air, she hit it right on the head. I think, the guy's, he looks like a model, right? But he did look a step slower. He did look I don't know if it's muscle bound or what the deal was, and especially after his Christmas went by the wayside, he started to really look a little rough around the edges there. And in terms of glass chins, Amir Khan called he wants his head back.
Yeah, I want to weigh in on this weight cut thing real quick, and then I'm gonna have to go. My phone's about to die.
Okay.
But for me, here's the thing, right? We talked about how these guys were going to be gatekeepers and this and that. And then we had some rule changes. We had the IV things change. We had weigh-in times change. We had percentage checks change, and I think what we're seeing here is these guys are working out those changes, right? So like there was a serious adjustment period for these guys, and they're starting to figure it out. They're understanding how to be more healthy about it. For some guys, that's going up a weight class. But then we're running into that situation where we don't really have great weight classes the higher you go. We don't have a good breakdown right now. And so you have guys that are stuck fighting in weight classes that they shouldn't have. When you look at a guy and you say, well, you have 24 hours to rehydrate, what you're really saying is, I don't mind if you dehydrate yourself to get on that scale. That's not healthy. We don't want models to do it. We don't want high school wrestlers to do it. We shouldn't expect our professional athletes to do it. That's flat out. It's what we need to be doing. We need to be weighing these guys in 2 hours before time. That way, all they have time to do is get something to eat, take a shit, and get something to drink. Like, that's all they need to be doing before a fight. They don't need to be rehydrating. They don't need to be chugging gallons of water. That's just as bad for you as dehydrating. This should not be what we're advocating for. By saying, okay, you have 24 hours to rehydrate, we're literally saying, please dehydrate yourself to make this. And that's not okay. We have to come up with a better, more healthy way. We shouldn't be having guys Melendez's age having to go get stem cells just so he can keep going. We have to take better care of our fighters. If these were dogs, if this was a horse race, we'd be furious.
You know what, folks? That I think Amanda just wrapped that up for us. There's only one other thing that I really want to cover on this. Amanda, if you can hang with us, you can. If you can't, I understand. Yeah. But the most important fight of the night was obviously Masvidal and Askren. I don't think any of the other fights had the impact that had. They didn't have the impact on the weight class. They didn't have the impact on the media. They didn't have the impact on the UFC and what their plan was, because the UFC did not plan for Ben Askren to come in and get beat by George Masvidal. I can promise you that.
Oh, hell no, they didn't.
But George Masvidal just knocked him out in 5 seconds.
Nah, it was really like 2.5. The other 2.5 was the ref stopping it. He was out in like 2.5. And he is the record now. You know, he's the record holder now. Like, he's got Dwayne Bane Ludwig out. He's got Connor out. He's got all of them. He's the record. It's the record. It's what it is. And so now they're going to have to promote him. They're going to have to pay him. And they're not going to have a choice.
Yep. So, Miguel, you know George better than all of us put together. I know George pretty well, but you.
Hey guys, have a good night. I'm gonna go.
Amanda, thank you so much.
Amanda.
Miguel, continue with that.
The thing is George is a pro, and he was always a pro. And the thing is now, and he was saying it in the ring, and I think he said it best. He said, "I've been around 16 years," And what that means that he understands that you only get these types of opportunities every once in a while. You've learned that at this point. And I think that the magnitude of this one didn't daunt him. He realized that. He said, this is the one I can't lose. I mentioned it in my pre-fight with Devin.
You did.
George, wake up, don't go in and compete or go to the judges or, whatever's been the hang up on some of the other fights where, some of the problem with George is a lot of those fights are decision laws that he thinks he won, right?
Well, he did the John Jones thing, right?
Yeah.
Except he wasn't popular.
Right. And so we'll see how it goes. But I wondered, we're left with, I wonder what would have happened if they'd gotten into it for 3 rounds, 2-3 rounds worth, or, gotten into the 3rd round or something, and just to see how they handle each other, because adversity is something. But to do what he did, it takes a lot of a combination of things, preparation and skill, but, the Lady Luck's got to be involved, and Askren not changing things up, finally catching up to him a little bit, And Askren, I think, counted on his head, being able to take that. People have talked about, hitting him at the level where they can't believe that he's still taking it, and that's, that's a hard way to fight, especially as a pro nowadays.
Look, Askren didn't take on George Masvidal. Askren took on American Top Team. And 16 years of fighting versus 30 years of wrestling. And that's the real truth of the matter. And in so doing, he got knocked out. And we've got to, and you sent me something immediately afterwards that said, on a text that said, should Askren be looking at stem cells now immediately? And then you suggested, maybe it's time for him to retire. And look, the guy's 34 years old or 32, whichever it is, but he's over 30 and he's had 20 fights. He's never been beat up other than when he entered the UFC. Robbie beat the living hell out of him and he got lucky and he got a really shitty call from Herb Dean. I love Herb Dean. I've refereed with Herb Dean. I know him pretty well. And I can say that Herb is as good as it gets, but he made a bad call on that one, in my opinion. And I think everybody agrees with that, including Robbie. And Ben said, no way am I going to give him the rematch. George bitched about Ben doing that. Will George give Ben the rematch?
No, I think, the UFC shouldn't even consider a rematch. That's not a rematchable fight right now. At this point,
but they won it. No, they won't sell the tickets again.
No, that's not going to happen. I don't think. I think that's.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, to me, Askren, is, already, Askren came to the UFC a little bit privileged in terms of position and with his marketing and his social media presence and stuff like that. He deserves some of that, and with his credentials and stuff, he also deserves some of that. So I'm not completely poo-pooing that, but you do have to sort of back it up. And now that he hasn't been able to back it up in just his second fight, despite all the talk and stuff like that, he does now have to go into the pack. Again, I'll make the call right here. It actually works out better this way, but he should fight Damian Maia. And just those are two ground specialists that aren't going to maybe Damian should come out and knock him out with a knee too. But, the bottom line is that's a fight, if it goes to the ground, that genuinely, both guys will be content, right? That's their strong point. And I think that I was thinking, like the UFC, and Askren was the favorite. If Askren wins, maybe they should do the Maia fight because, Askren just has such little UFC ring time, right? So it's another throwaway fight, especially if you think Askren's going to win. But now, coming off a loss, it's perfect because Damian's looking for a retirement fight. And again, the ground specialist fight, that one genuinely interests me. I'd like to see that on the ground.
I agree with you completely. We had Claudia Gadelha. That was as boring as it gets. We had a lot of point fights tonight, but then you mentioned Allen, which was a fantastic fight with Melendez. And so you really start to see, I mentioned on my Chat with Cadillac YouTube page stuff, which is on the Cage Rage podcast YouTube page. Between fights, I was talking about things, and I said one of the things that I talked about was, we're seeing the new breed coming in and the old breed going out. So Melendez, for example, bounced. He hopped on both feet. When he was trying to try and stay busy and try and stay fluid on his feet, they say keep on your toes, so that you're moving and you're able to move around. Because if you plant your feet and your heels are on the ground and your toes are on the ground, your feet scrape the mat, and that makes you much slower. If your toes are on the mat, but your heels are not on the mat, then you move much faster because you're on your toes. That's the reason for that, in case you didn't know. I know you know, but for the audience, what I'm getting at is Melendez didn't do that. Melendez hopped the whole time. And he hopped almost to the point where both feet were up and down, whereas Allen was, he was on his toes and he was stepping. He was toe stepping, almost ballerina style, looking for that movement to come in at that side angle and find that angle to pop him with. And he beat Melendez from start to finish in every single way. And Melendez looked like he was well over 30 years old. Maybe stem cells change that. Let's see about that in a few months. Other than that, the Chiesa Sanchez fight to me was the most interesting fight of the night, other than obviously George and Askren, which, 5 seconds, how much interest can you really have in it? And Nunez and Holmes was good. We all missed on that. We all picked Holmes. We all missed on it. Holmes did exactly what she had prepared to do, except she had that look in her eyes like she was intimidated by Nunez. And I thought, damn, I sent you a text right before and I said, she looks really nervous. And you said something about, don't curse at her or something like that. And it kind of wound up that way. Anything to wrap up on this, Miguel? It was, it was a great week to talk about fights. I don't know that the fights were as great as the hype leading up to the fights. Do you agree with that?
No, I think George hit the moment. I think, when you have a highlight reel that you can show the whole fight, it plus you can say fastest knockout and stuff like that. I think he did the moment. I think Blachowicz also deserves credit because he was a guy that, they've matched him tough, and if you want to give Rockhold respect like he demands, right, then, Rockhold was not another easy fight for Blachowicz or Blachowicz for him to bounce back or anything like that. So Blachowicz was putting himself in a hard spot, and he answered the call, and I think he did well. Even when Rockhold was putting out offense, I don't think Blachowicz was really worried about any of that stuff. He stayed clear-headed the whole time, and even if he was hurt, he was clear-headed and very focused on what he had to do. So Polish Power, I think that he's not going to get as much credit. It's going to get lost on this name-heavy card, but Blachowicz deserves a lot of credit today.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And I just did the cardinal sin. I kind of left him out and shouldn't have done that, because he truly was one of the heroes of the night. And I mean, he really did save the show, and he brought something to us that made us go, oh, wow, what we thought was going to happen didn't happen. And that's part of the fun of MMA, of all combat sports in general, of sports in general. When you see the upset, that's a big deal. But no doubt about it, the steal of the night was Masvidal coming in and running across the ring, Askren shooting in, head low and to the left, Masvidal catching him with his right knee and dropping him flat.
Not flat. He had a leg tensing up and lifted up a little bit, like a little John Matua action.
He was
tense.
Absolute annihilation, setting the UFC record for knockout. And if they really would have gotten in there, as Amanda had alluded to, and Joe Rogan had talked about earlier, if Herb Dean would have gotten in there and stopped it before, which he just didn't have the timing to do it, but had he been able to slide over Ben and cover him and protect him from taking those two fists that George put on Askren, it would have been a 2-second knockout. So, I mean, that would never be beat.
Yeah, he was he got a lot of hype and a lot of press for his 3-piece and a soda. What was
the 3 pieces of soda.
I don't know what you call this, a Happy Meal, because Ben Askren ate that one, But
I think you call this one the mule kick to the face.
Yeah, that's definitely. I hope Ben's okay. Aside from all that, Ben's a guy.
Agree.
I go back and forth on whether I like him or not. He can at times be very funny, and he can at times, maybe cross a few lines in his arrogance and in his shtick and stuff. He's not like Rockhold, who I think Rockhold proved it again in this UFC, where and they to the point where they even mentioned it in Blachowicz's post-fight interview, rather.
Yeah,
you had to withstand all the shit talk from this guy. You know what I mean? And Rockhold's he's out of line with it at sometimes, because you just don't have to be that arrogant. And he's been getting knocked out. At least with Askren, he was undefeated and stuff. But
yeah, I mean, Askren and Chael
Sonnen. And I gotta tell you, as he left the octagon, he was being helped down the stairs. He was not handling the stairs on his own.
Yeah,
and he was looking very Squire Hill, looking at the doctors and not knowing what's going on. So he was looking like a doe in the headlights. And so like I said, my positive vibes to Ben. Nobody wants to see him hurt or anything serious like that. But I'm kind of glad for George in the way it played out. I think that the fact is it is a highlight reel, as we mentioned it, and George, should now be in a position where hopefully he's able to, take home a pay check with an extra 0.
What happens? Just one more question. We'll wrap this up. What happens if the UFC says, "Look, we've got to deal with Askren. We've got to honor it. You got to do the rematch, but we're going to make you a gazillionaire to do this rematch." Does George take that, or does he say, "No, I want the title"? Which is smarter for George?
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I think you're off on the idea of a rematch here. I think Askren.
No, I'm not saying. What I'm saying is this: if there is some type of contractual agreement with Askren that we don't know about, which those happen all the time.
So he gets a rematch if he loses?
Yeah, I mean, and they go, George, you have to take this rematch. And George goes, okay, but I want $100 million to do it. Then the UFC has to say, we've either got to let you fight for the title, which I don't think is a good fight for George, honestly, or we've got to put you in with Ben again and give you the money you want. Do you think the UFC bends and gives him the money he wants? And do you think that's the best way for George to go?
I don't think there's any way that the UFC wants him to rematch Askren. I think that's absolutely, a complete waste of the moment.
Right. I agree. I agree. I just wanted to hear somebody else say it besides me thinking it in my head. Well, hey, listen, this has been the CRP, and we are wrapping up the big show for UFC 239, the July 6th International Fight Week. The John Jones fight might as well not happen. It was a sparring match, which I feared it would be. It was totally boring. And in my opinion, and in one judge's opinion as well, Jones lost the fight. And I'm not sure I agree or disagree with that. I'm going to have to go back through and really look at it. I think Jones probably won the fight, but if you look at the damage that was attempted, because no damage was really done by anybody. So if you look at attempted damage, you might say that Santos won this. I don't know. Either way, I'm not a Jones fan, and so I'm biased. And so that's all I've got to say about it. Diego Sanchez, go get your stem cells. BioAccelerator is the place to do it. They're going to take great care of you. Gilbert Melendez, give them time to kick in. Don't go get them a week before your fight, because that's not how it works. And Miguel and I are going to talk more about stem cells, and hopefully we'll have some of those guys on with BioAccelerator, because they've been talking to me about wanting to bring them on the show. So with that being said, Miguel, you got anything to wrap up? Oh, yeah, of course. Duh. Amanda Nunes, you're the GOAT. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. You're right. You are the baddest champ alive. You're unbelievable, and I'm shocked, shock and awe, and very proud of you, and very happy for you. And George Masvidal, bang bang, go get him, killer. Miguel, you got anything after that?
Yeah, it's a good day for American Top Team. Saludos to everybody down there, and yep, Amanda, Max Holloway might be a good fight for her. I don't know what we do with her next. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's almost got to do the Cyborg fight again. I mean, I don't know what else can
yeah, I think they call for that on the broadcast, and that'll make sense for her. Cyborg may not want it. We'll see. So, yeah, but that's a good place to wrap up.
Okay, hey, listen. This is Chadillac. That's Miguel Iterati, and we are the CRP. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to follow. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Blah, blah, blah. You know all that shit. We don't give a shit anyway. We're just here to bring you the greatest combat sports news that we can possibly bring you. Until next time, namaste.